For coming and welcome. All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. We are very excited to have you here today to hear from Leah and Paula, who are just finishing up a program at the Richmond Vale Academy. The Academy was founded 40 years ago in St. Vincent and the Grenadines as one of several schools focused on training and challenging students interested in empowering positive change in communities around the globe. It's supported by the broader Humana People to People Federation, of which Planet Aid is the U.S. member. The Academy has focused in recent years on developing young leaders in climate change and sustainable community development. RVA students are trained to be development instructors and are deployed for 6 months of field experience to selected HPP members in Africa and Latin America. Planet Aid supports recruitment at RVA and funds scholarships for students to attend. These scholarships are designed to give Planet Aid employees, family members, and others a unique opportunity to learn and gain hands-on experience. Planet Aid awards scholarships to help students attend RVA to learn international development and community organization skills. And any Planet Aid employee can nominate someone for a scholarship. So feel free to submit those nominations. And now a little background on our presenters. Leah was born in Honduras in the heart of Central America. She enjoys visiting new places, experiencing new cultures, and being in nature. She has a bachelor degree in the development. She has a bachelor degree in business and industrial management. Her career has been focused in the development aid sector. Before she joined the program, she was working in logistics and fund administration for a development aid organization with offices all across the American continent. For Leah, it was important to work in an organization that was supporting projects for the common good of Honduras. However, she also wanted to leave the office job and get a new perspective about development aid by working in the field. Paula is an architect born in Colombia. She's a very creative person and passionate about photography, illustration, and paint. Before joining the volunteer program, she was working for an architecture firm. And throughout her experience, she worked designing buildings and developing projects within the private sector. Her past experience involves designing a sustainable school for an indigenous community in Colombia, and she also started a collective around Bogota with a mission to work with communities to improve their common spaces. The collective got the opportunity to collaborate with TECHO, an organization that helps people build temporary houses in vulnerable areas around Latin America. Paula is interested in working with communities and in sustainable architect projects. And I had an opportunity to read through their reports and get a sense of their experience in the program, and it just seems like such a unique opportunity. And so very excited to hear about it. And I'm just going to tee this up by giving some background information. How did you guys end up studying at RVA? What led you to the program?
Okay, so let's start a little bit giving some context about our program and about RVA, Richmond Vale Academy. So basically, RVA is just a group of people who join together with a lot of concerns about climate change, poverty, inequality. And basically, we live here in community. We share spaces, share duties, and we have two different programs. The first one is climate change. It's a program of 6 months. And the second one is fighting with the poor. That is the one that we decide to join.
Yeah. So the fighting with the poor program is, if you join, it's a total of 10 months. And so it's divided in 3 phases. The first phase is 3 months here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And basically, we call it the preparation period, where you are learning about the African culture, African history. You learn about politics of the world, climate change, and many other interesting topics. We also have not only theoretical knowledge, but also practical skills. We develop practical skills. Like we learn how to filter water, and we have other like interesting workshops that are going to be useful in the projects. Then the next phase, it's in the project. So in our case, we were assigned to go to Malawi, but like you mentioned before, this fighting with the poor is not only in Africa, but also not only in Malawi, but also in other countries in Africa and Latin America. Here, you have many options, not only, well, in our both experiences, I chose to be a core group teacher, and Paula chose to be a preschool DI. And we have different duties in these two roles, but we're going to talk about more of this later. And the last month, after the projects, we come back to St. Vincent and we conclude. Basically, we are here gathering all the information that we experienced, we document, and we share it like what we're doing right now. And as for your question also, how we ended up here, in my case, I know about the program since 2019. I followed a volunteer back then. We didn't meet at the time. We know each other now, but she was doing the program, and I found her experience really inspiring. She was working in communities in Malawi as well, and she was just, you know, portraying her story in a very genuine way. And I felt like, wow, you can make an impact. You don't have to be a big corporation. You don't have to have unlimited amount of resources, and you can still make a positive impact. So I felt very inspired with her story. I got in touch with her, and it took me a few years. Like I mentioned, this was back in 2019. So to make the step, the big step for me, it took me some time. And it was until last year that I felt like everything was aligned for me to join. And I would say this is a good time to thank Planet 8 for granting me the scholarship.
Yeah. And for me, to answer your question, like as many of us, we also like heard from someone else that was in the program before or had this experience in their life. So I had a cousin who made the same program. And at that point, when I took the decision, I was looking for a different way of living. I was looking for a change in my life and something that was going to be meaningful for me. So this experience came to me like in the right moment, in the perfect place. And I just took it just for trying to do something different with my career.
All right, and let's maybe, yeah, we'll jump into some of your impressions of Africa. The first question is, was this your first trip to Africa? And then, what was it like arriving, and what were your first impressions?
Okay, so I can answer for both, I guess. It was our first time in Africa. And we want to show this map of Africa just because it's important that I think it's important that we were in different locations. So in our specific team, we were 12 members, and we were divided in trios. So my trio was assigned to the northern part of Malawi called Zimba. This is a very rural area, and I would say where the main source of income is agriculture. Malawi has many challenges in like water source. The climate is very dry sometimes. Either you have a lot of rain or a lot of period of time without any water. So I would say you can see this reflected in poverty. So and Paula was assigned in
I was in the middle of the country, like 1 or 2 hours away from the capital of Malawi, which is Lilongwe. You can see in the presentation in the middle is my location, and then in the north is Lia's. So yeah, that's basically. I was close to the refugee camp. I was living just near the refugee camp, like 5 minutes away from there. But I will talk about it just in a second.
Yeah. So I would say to answer your question, Haley, about what was my first impression in arriving, I would say it was a very exciting moment for me because I was waiting for being in Malawi for a long time. So I had this excitement. When we arrived, we were received by the people, by our hosts from Humana. They were really, really welcoming. They had many activities for us, like they showed us about the history of DAP Malawi, the projects they are running currently, and a lot of they put us into context, I believe. Also, I won't lie, this was a very difficult time for me, to adapt. This is like, there is nothing that could have prepared me. Even the preparation time here in St. Vincent was very good for us to have an idea, but nothing can compare to the reality. So the cultural shock was there. And I had to adapt to this new way of living. We tried, I think Humana and DAP are giving us a very dignified way to live. We are living in a teacher training college. In every location that we have these trios. So I was in a teacher training college in the north. Paula was in a teacher training college in the center of Malawi, and there was another location in the south. So we were all living in a very good condition, but even the good condition, it's tough compared to what we are used to. So, for example, I was, taking bucket showers for half a year with cold water, where there is cold weather sometimes. The diet in Malawi is different from what I'm used to. So I would say it was a tough period. You have to adapt to these new circumstances. We were okay all the time. I don't think we lack anything. We were having very good conditions, but in a different way. And yeah, I think at the end, the experience it came out really good, but at first it was shocking in that way.
Yeah. I can share some thoughts with Leah. For me at the beginning, like first I needed to process the experience that I was going to face. So you go there with some ideas, and then like you have a lot of expectations. Maybe here in the school they try to prepare us, but the reality is totally different. And even of course, in my case, living near to the refugee camp, the expectations and the reality were so different. I went there with this idea of how a refugee camp looks like, or how Africa was looking like, like we have these ideas of movies and everything, but nothing compares to reality. So the first part was just to process all those expectations, all this dream or these magical ideas that I had in mind, and then go directly to the ground just to live reality. And about the refugee camp, I just wanted to share some things, because that was like one of the most shocking things during the first months. As I mentioned before, we lived, like me and my trio, we live in the school just 5 minutes away from the refugee camp. And I remember the first day when we went there, it was around 6 p.m. and it was already getting dark, and we get there and it was overcrowded because this place was built just for 10,000 people, and now more than 50,000 people was living there. So there was a lot of people around, many cultures, and we were very different from them. So you could feel, I had this feeling of being like a place being so hostile and so different from what I knew and what I thought, that it was quite shocking. Of course, at the end, you get used to it, you adapt to those situations, you start to live with these people, and you know how to grow in this environment. So at the beginning, of course, was super shocking, but then, as I was telling you, you get used to it to that. Yeah. So we are going to talk a little bit about our jobs.
Yeah, let's talk about the work. You know, what was your role? What were some of your bigger challenges, and how did you overcome them and you know, make those accomplishments?
Yes, so I was mentioning before that we have different options to base our volunteer in. So in our specific team, we had only two options, either core group teacher or preschool development instructor, sorry. But at some point, there are other options open, like working for farm clubs or women's clubs and health related activities or agriculture. But in our case, I chose to be a core group teacher. Basically, I was in charge of a group of 30 students, and I also joined one main teacher who was teaching life skills, the subjects of life skills and social studies. And throughout this time, you know, I was supporting him in planning some classes. There are also some specific times during the week where the students are developing practical activities of the same subject. So he let me, at some point, I was hosting these activities, and it was going really well. As a core group teacher, you can join different additional activities besides the main classes. So I started a dance club. It was really fun. And I also had, as an additional, I took the initiative to play movies every week. So every week we had movie night, and we had to play movies that had a meaning, a lesson. So I was, you know, thinking a lot about what should they learn about, what is going to be good for their growth. And at the end, we would discuss the movie together, and sometimes they had the initiative to write an essay about the movie. So everything was like very integral, you know, even the activities outside the class could also be beneficial to classes. And I would say my biggest challenge was to teach, you know, because I have no background in teaching. So of course, I did presentations before when I was studying, so I was not so afraid about talking in public, but for me was, how can I engage with them? How can I keep them interested in what I'm saying? How can they benefit from my teaching? So it was a big challenge. And of course, I had to prepare myself, and I also had the support of other people around me. They were giving me some advice, and they were jumping in. I was never alone, I would say. I always was working with my colleagues were a great support for me. But I would say at some point, they let me by myself because they were confident that I was ready to be alone. And my biggest accomplishment, I would say, for me, it was so amazing to build this beautiful relation with the students. Like, I believe that it was not only teacher, student, but more than that. Like, I think we are friends, and we're still in touch. And because this is something that you cannot, it's genuine, you know, what either you have it or you don't. And I was very lucky to be accepted by them. It all started because they were curious about, you know, other culture, and that's how the conversation was engaged, I guess, at the beginning. But then we just had a good time together.
Okay. So my position was totally different from Leah's. I was working with preschools. So basically, our goal was to improve the conditions of the preschools surrounding the school. We had 25 preschools to work with. At some point, we couldn't reach them all. We tried to reach just 7, like the ones that we thought were more encouraged to work. And so that was our goal. At the beginning, we had to just observe how they were working, if they had the proper spaces to teach, if the caregivers, which in this case were just volunteer people who volunteers to teach kids from the community, so they didn't have any background or any knowledge. So our goal was also to teach them, to train them in some way, so we can give some tools for them to teach to the kids. And at some point we decided just to build and renovate the classrooms, because we find out that they were having like so bad conditions. So we try to create an environment for them to be engaged to go there, and for have the tools to teach them. So maybe this picture is not showing that much, but we try to put all the tools that they need, like for example numbers, shapes, colors, because for them it's really difficult to access to these materials. So if you could create an environment for them where they have everything needed to teach, that would be like a way to push them to continue educating their children in the communities. So as preschool DIs, my teammate and I could reach at the end 7 communities. That I'm jumping a little bit in your question. That was one of our biggest accomplishments. We reached these 7 communities. They were super engaged, super encouraged to work. We had many meetings with them. And as our biggest challenge, that has 2 different phases. For one side, it was a huge challenge to work with the communities, first because of the language gap, and second because sometimes it's difficult to tell people who's living in the poorest conditions, in difficult conditions, to just send their kids to school while they have many other things to focus on, like for example, what are they going to eat, or how are they living? So it was really, really challenging to encourage them to work hand by hand with us, with one goal in mind. But that was also the biggest accomplishment, when we could overcome those ideas, and when the community really get together to work with that on mind. So I'm going to skip the next one.
So yeah, then we can just kind of jump into what were some of the key takeaways, and what did you learn through this experience?
Yes, so I learned so many things that we will need more than 1 hour to tell you about everything. But So I have, let's separate into parts. First, this was very like an eye-opening experience for me. To be in a different culture with the different conditions, the way of living is way, way different. So in that way, personally, I learned a lot to adapt, to be resilient, to appreciate, I learned a lot about myself, basically. I would say I learned also that you can make an impact without investing many resources. I think this is one of the most important things, because you don't have to go to Africa. You can still make an impact in your community. You can get involved in different ways. You can make better decisions on the way that you're shopping for your home. Like in every way you have a say. That's something that I want to highlight. Specifically about what I was doing, I would say talent is everywhere. Opportunity maybe is not everywhere. So for my students, I had so much admiration for them. They are super, super creative in the arts. They sing songs, they make poems, they are, passionate about dancing. I had a few students that they were, the biggest fashionistas, and they had, like small resources, but they were still expressing themselves in a very beautiful way. So in the context of Malawi, even if you have all these amazing talents and you have passion for a specific art, the opportunity, I think it becomes less. For some reason, that is my take. So it's kind of unfair, but it's people, girls wanting the same things that girls in America want. And I'm talking about America as a continent. So we are the same, with the same desires, with the same wants. And I also want to say, because I was living in a very rural area, I had basically 0 distractions. So my internet was very limited. I had internet on my phone, but it was expensive, in my opinion, to be buying internet bundle all the time. So I tried to just use it as less as possible. And I was, more present. And this was also a very nice experience for me, because in my daily life, I was full of distractions. And when I was not distracted, I was trying to find something else. If I'm not playing music, I'm watching a video. If I'm not watching a video, I'm, doing something. I want to keep my mind busy. So in my experience in Simba, in Malawi, I was more present. I had basically no distractions. I was talking to people. I was building these beautiful friendships. So I think this was a very good experience in that sense for me. And yeah, I have many more things to say, but I know the time is limited. But these are my main journey things.
Yes, as Dinara was saying before, I think that this experience, I haven't lived the after volunteer experience yet, but I think that this experience marked your life forever. I learned so many things, but I would say that mostly they are like in a very personal way. I learned how strong I can be, how adaptable I can be, but I think that the most important thing, well, there are two that I can just mark. One of that is the sense of community you can learn by working with them. They are always making decisions together. They are always living and raising kids and doing everything and in community, and we are always like used to it to work as individuals, take decisions individually. So everything like that was so important and changed in so many ways my life that I cannot believe how we live always as individuals without thinking in other people, and from them I learned that. And from in the context in Malawi in general, I think that I learned how privileged we are by living, even in Colombia, that is also a country in the way of development. We are really privileged because we don't live in that conditions. We never, like, I've never seen like poverty and that way of living. I've never seen it in my life. So I thank life to show me that face, because we are really privileged for the meaning, like all the things that we have, even if they are just a few and they are not like in a, I don't know how to say it, but we are super privileged.
Sounds like some really interesting perspective that you got, both on the world and on yourself. So I think really well said and illustrated. We'll just wrap it up here and talk about what's next for you guys. How has this experience impacted you and your future plans? Kind of what has it left you with?
Yes. So for me, I would say behind this door is an opportunity I will find an opportunity to work in an organization that is aligned with my purpose. I knew it before I joined the program. I enjoy working in the development aid sector, and I want to continue working in this area. I don't know where yet, but I would say definitely in that area, to make an impact. It can be in anything, but to look for something outside of me that it can benefit other people.
Yeah, I think for me it's a little bit different, a little bit similar actually. After this experience, I start to believe again that in my field in architecture, you can change so many lives, and you can do so many things to change your environment. So from now, I believe strongly that I can work in the sustainable field, or like in architectural projects with communities. So I'm not sure yet how to get there, but I have some ideas and some clues of what I want to do next. So for sure, this experience changed a lot in that way.
Beautiful. Okay, I think we can turn it. We've got a couple minutes here for some questions and answers. So I would just say, attendees on the phone, you can just unmute yourself if you have any questions, and go ahead and answer them, or go ahead and ask them. And maybe I'll just start off. I'm just curious about the food. Did you discover any new cuisine that you really liked?
I have to be very honest. The diet is very simple. Mm-hmm. So the let's say the most common food is called sima, and basically it's like corn flour that it's boiled, and it feels and looks like a mashed potato, but it doesn't taste like mashed potato. And you usually people eat that with something else, but sometimes it happens that that's the only thing they eat. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say I was a fan of this cuisine, or I want to continue eating this diet, but for the time of the 6 months, it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say that is like the most exquisite cuisine that I've tried, but you kind of get used to it. And part of that adaptability was that. And part of that shocking part of the beginning was getting to know the food and try to adapt to that kind of, because we were used to many different things and many like variety. but there you cannot find it. It's like the main food that they have, and you have to like actually I remember going to the communities, and for them was so important to share with us a plate of sima and to sit all together and get around a plate and eat all from the same plate. Even in that way, they were super thinking all the time in community, in groups.
Mm.
So even by eating all from the same plate. Yeah.
Very nice. All right, I'll turn it over. Does anyone else have any questions? Go ahead and chime in and ask your questions. Mm. All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, we can just wrap it up then. I don't see anyone coming off of mute here. I'm going to give you one more chance to ask any questions you might have.
I'll
Hold
ask
on.
a question.
Oh,
Okay.
here we go.
It sounds like an incredible experience, and I did get to hear from Denora a little bit about her experiences doing a similar project. And I just want to ask if you have like a favorite memory of sort of cultural epiphany or cultural clash or whatever it might have been of kind of adjusting and figuring it out, if that makes sense.
Yes, for me, I have a very specific moment. Can we shift back to that? I was going to share, but I just forgot. So yeah. So in this, I'm on the left with the pink shirts. This was such a beautiful day. I honestly, I will treasure, I believe, all my life. This day was almost at the end of my program. So I told the students, let's go for a hike. We will have a picnic in the top of the mountain. And we did. All of them came, and we spent the whole afternoon in this place. The nature was beautiful. The weather was beautiful. And we were just there dancing, listening to music, you know, like they even gave a speech at the end, like, thank you. And they said many beautiful things. And I felt so content, and I felt like, you know, this was basically my farewell. They didn't know, and I didn't know either. But this turned out to be like one of the most beautiful moments. Like everything around was so beautiful.
I also have like many memories, but I would mention some like one. And it's related actually with the same like the picture that you were seeing there. I'm there with all the community. I remember that day we went to build a playground. We already renewed their classroom, we painted, and we share a lot of time with this community. So we decided to build this playground for the kids. We get together with the community. We assembly all the things that we took for the playground. And I remember all the kids just laying around us while we were working, and they were just there waiting for us to finish. They didn't know what was going on because I think they are not that related with these kind of things. But as soon as we finished, they were super shy. They didn't know how to use things, and so we tried to taught them how to, I don't know, we use the swings and we push them. So at some point they get like super excited, and they like take by themselves the whole space, and they start jumping and enjoying the place. So I remember just standing there in front of them, just watching them playing. That moment was like so fulfilling for me, like everything that we worked for this, because we had to make a fundraising and there were many hours biking, many working hours, and everything in that moment was worth it. My eyes were like full of tears, and I was so happy. Like I really felt like the experience was totally worth it. And of course the community, they all were super grateful with our job, and they didn't speak any English, or basically anything, but you could listen every time that they say God bless you, and that words came from their hearts, and you can feel it. And I always carry with me like that full feeling with me.
All right, I think we have time for just one more question here and we'll wrap it up. Does anyone else just feel free to chime in?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that both these young ladies should be commended for what they've done. It takes a very special person to be able to take and go from their home, their community, and halfway around the world to take care of people and to work with people and to, just get involved with them. And like you just said, they didn't understand much English there, but they said, God bless you. So it takes a strong person. You got to have a good heart, and you got to be a spiritual person as well to do it. So again, you young lady should be commended for what you've done.
Thank you.
Well said, Larry. Yeah, I think we all agree. I'm certainly impressed. I try to think of myself when I was your age, and doing something like this seems very challenging. So a lot of respect for what you guys did. And thank you so much for sharing the lessons with us. I think, a lot of these are kind of lifelong lessons, and just such a unique way to learn them. So anyway, we appreciate your time and so much, and wish you all the best in your future endeavors. I know you'll take this experience, and it will just sort of color everything you do moving forward with that perspective. So really rewarding to see that. So yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you both for giving us just a glimpse into your experience, and best of luck.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I just wanted to say that for all the people that are in the call, if anybody has some questions or want to know more about Leah and Paula's experience, or have some questions about the scholarship, you are more than welcome to email me or call me, and I will be happy to give you more information. Okay.